So good morning, good afternoon. So I see some people here in New Jersey, see some people in Tripoli in Libya, some people in India, and there's many more of you. Please share where you are joining from. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we are actually doing a live interview with one of the most inspirational people I've come across. And as you know, I love this series where I get to chat to people who are incredible, who are making our industry better, we're making it grow fast. And I hope that you guys get to enjoy these interviews and get to learn a lot from them, because there is certainly a lot to learn from. Today we have with us Bikesh Okra, who is the CEO of the solar EPC business of Sterling & Wilson. He's muted at the moment, so he's going to get to talk in a few minutes. But just to let you know, this leader session is just part of the skill development program, as you know, which is a free program for you guys to attend. And where we are looking at sort of improving the skills for the people who are in the renewable energy industry. And hopefully this will be the case going forward. And today with us is someone that is really remarkable. He's been 20 years at Sterling & Wilson at the moment, and he's well respected both inside the company and also outside. He started and consolidated a number of business for the company, including, of course, the solar EPC business. We will be discussing this with him today. The solar EPC business started from scratch in 2011. It has commissioned today 3,500 megawatts of solar projects, and is constructing another 3,000 megawatts approximately. It has an impressive track record in Argentina, Mexico, Morocco, Egypt, South Africa, the United Arab Emirates, Bangladesh, Nigeria, the Philippines, among others. And it has some milestone projects, as you will know as well, like the project in Abu Dhabi. So we will be talking about that too. So first of all, Bikesh, thank you for being here with us today and dedicating this time to this interview.
Thank you, Belen, and thanks everyone who is participating in this interview. Thanks for having me, on this platform.
So, okay, I have to say, under your leadership, Sterling & Wilson has had a meteoric rise. The growth has been quite exponential, actually. So 12 years ago, when you kind of started getting into leadership positions, you were at about 50 million in Sterling & Wilson. Today, you're expecting a 1.8 billion turnover for the 2018-2019 year. I have a hard time imagining how someone can add so much value to a business. Not so much after I've spoken to you, actually, Bikesh. Now I understand many things, but it's a very short amount of time. And obviously, I know that you're a very busy man, and we've been talking for a few weeks now. But let us know, let our people in the audience know, what do you do in sort of a day-to-day, or an average week in your job, so that people can understand what your job entails?
See, I think on an average, traveling takes quite a bit of a toll and time out of me. I take almost at times 5 to 6 flights in a week, hopping from one place to the other. But to the extent possible, I try and stay connected with my teams, both personally, professionally, as well as personally. Needless to mention, I think every single hour spent with the family is also very critical, and it charges me up for the succeeding weeks. So it's a mix of keeping the work-life balance in place, obviously catering to the needs of the business, traveling, business needs, operational needs, and the family life. So it's a mix of everything, I would say, if you ask me how the week or the days go for me.
So where have you been this week? Where have you been? What countries?
So I think this week was Munich, Dubai, India, and back to Dubai. So I would say 4 flights for this week. I will be flying back into Dubai tomorrow from India.
You've missed London, maybe?
Yeah, I miss London. Yeah, I miss London.
So you've already forgotten, you travel so much, but it makes sense. So we're going to talk about your life, but in 2 periods, one before 2011 and then another one after, because 2011 is when you started the solar EPC business. And after chatting to you, I realized that this is where things became much quicker. Not that they were going slow before, but that's when things got really crazy. So starting at the beginning, we're going to start with how you got into engineering. So you're from an area of conflict in northern India, in Kashmir. And when you were about 19, when you should be worried, about probably girls and teenagers issues like maybe studying and being naughty, you actually were like, you were worried, you know, your whole family was worried about, there was some unsettlement, some bad times in that area. And your family was looking to move and also struggling to make ends meet. So perhaps you can tell us about that time. You know, I'd like for people to hear it, because you said at the time that the future was looking really bleak around 1991. So I want people to understand that you know, where you come from, and, you know, how you came to be where you are now.
Yeah, so I think those timelines would and are very permanently embossed in my mind. I think from a personal perspective, because life was very traumatic around that period. So I was around 18, 19 years old, and had absolutely zero exposure to the outside world. When I say outside world, there's this place called Kashmir in the northern part of India, and I had not seen anything else other than Kashmir for all of those 18, 19 years. And that was my exposure to the whole outside world. So I think there was a heavy political turmoil that happened. Kashmir, incidentally, for people to know, is amongst the most beautiful places in the world. You know, they call it amongst the most beautiful places in the world. So there still continues to be a turmoil there. There was a political turmoil there, and we, being from a community who are on a minority side, we were forced to leave the place, and that too within a span of almost 24 hours, leaving behind your complete assets, belongings, and all the other stuff. This obviously meant a lot of stress. They were very stressful times. Future, like you said, was looking very bleak and very gloomy. You know, we were flooded with uncertainties, to having come in from a place and just to move out into the, you know, scattered into the other parts of India. And more so, what was compounding the issues were, you know, we were coming in from a very modest background, and we were struggling with our existence every single day.
And you moved to Delhi. How things were there not much easier for you?
No, I think one is, you know, relatively on the cost side, the survival side, the, you know, day-to-day living standards are far, far higher than, you know, what they were in back home in Kashmir. So, you know, the very thought of getting uprooted from your place of origin was very nightmarish. And then, you know, then your family, emotionally, socially, financially, was very, very drenched. And what compounded the whole issue was, at that point in time, 90 to 94, I was doing my graduation. And there was a stage wherein, you know, because we were financially very, very unstable, there was a stage midway I had thought of giving up and then taking up some employment to support my parents on the financial side. But I think my parents persevered, and they said, no, you must finish the graduation. So they did manage to convince me. I did manage to stay on and finish my graduation. So that was the initial years, you know, when, you know, I finished I had an upheaval times wherein I was just forced out of the place, forced to flee. Those were very, very stressful times, very traumatic, and it stays in my mind. You know, it won't go very, very easily from my mind.
Yeah, so those years were the years where you were training to be an engineer, but you didn't necessarily want to be an engineer. You became an engineer thanks to the insistence of your parents. Tell us, what did you want to be? What was your dream?
No, so I think as is the norm in as was the norm, not any more longer in these part of the world, in India more specifically, that every parents at that point in time wanted their sons and daughters to become engineers and doctors, and there was no other profession existing in the dictionary of the parents at that point in time.
But you did have another dream.
Yeah, so I had a dream. I am a sportsman. I was a very good sportsman. So I don't know how many people know about this game of cricket, which is like a religion in this country.
Everybody knows about cricket. Nobody understands it, but everybody knows.
So I used to term myself as a very, very good cricket player. I had always an urge and an aspiration to play for the country. I always thought that I would be, at some point, in a given a choice, would be able to represent the country. And I had been, you know, working around it quite a bit, you know, bunking classes, going to my practice games, having coaching being done without my parents knowing it. They all thought that, you know, on the naughtier side, they all thought I'm doing my classes, I'm doing my coaching. And actually, I was doing my cricketing practices.
Which takes me to the next question. Were you a good student?
I was an average student, regularly bunking classes, crazy, naughty, and at the best, a backbencher. but I always had a very entrepreneurial spirit and mindset in me. I think probably that has helped me in the longer run also of my career and the path.
So it just proves that you don't have to be a good student to be brilliant, I suppose. You graduated in 1994, and your first job was actually working for a company that carried out techno-commercial studies. What did you learn there?
So it was a good job to start off with. It was a small startup company wherein World Bank was funding that startup because they were exploring a techno-commercial studies for multiple other startups that were wanting to put up, say manufacturing or some innovative products that they wanted to produce in India. So it was World Cup frenzy is going on. Soccer World Cup. So it was a World Bank funded company. So I did quite a bit of stint as a desktop research on it. So it was not exciting for me at all, considering that it was only a desktop research without any interface with the customers, without really going out into the market, having the feel of the industry as such. So I started getting bored into the job for almost a year and a half. Started getting bored, very bored. Although the job, if I take a hindsight look at it, would have been a very, very good job as a career also. But that was very boring to me because it was just pure play desktop job.
And what you were missing is, of course, talking to your clients. So you got this job offer, for Sterling & Wilson, which was a tiny company at the time. It was about $1 million a year. It's a long time ago.
Yes.
So what happened when you first joined?
Yeah, so I think that also is a very, very interesting story. When I left and joined Sterling Wilson, I critically remember the first day of my job in Sterling Wilson. I just was picked up by my boss. There was this large project that we executed. At that point in time, this is in 1996, 97, we were executing these infrastructure projects like the airports and the, hospitals, health, hotels, and all of this stuff. So there was this project which was at that point in the largest project of the company, which was again $1 million project, which was to be done over 3 years. So it was for me a baptism by fire. So I was just picked up my boss, put it into the project. There were the 25 guys, in the meeting. They were just shouting and for the delays and all. I'm just looking and I'm just confused as to where I have come. So it was a desktop research job wherein I was on myself, and then all of a sudden thrown into this ocean wherein people are jumping and you scratching at you. And so I think this started off with that. I think over a period of 6 months, I took control of the situation. I was a pure construction engineer, not even a manager, construction engineer there. Within a span of 6 to 7 months, I started taking control of the project in totality. The customers started liking me. They started even bypassing the project director, the project manager, the construction manager, and they started talking to me directly because they saw a lot of value, and their work, getting executed by talking to me. So that's where I think I started getting into the nuances of project implementation, project execution, and that's real strength that we carry as an organization as well. So this project lasted for almost 3 years, and I think what it helped me in is to understand the agonies, the problems, the issues that a guy on the project site faces, and I always try and relate to him because I've gone through the same phase. I went through the same phase for almost 5 to 6 years, and I can always understand, relate, empathize with him, which in certain cases wherein your CEO doesn't really have that experience of having come from a construction background, and it has helped the organization in a way because the decision making becomes much swiftер and much faster.
Actually, I have to tell people my story because I've known about this. In my weeks of prep with Bikesh, he's actually had to postpone a couple of times because he's just taken a last-minute flight to some of the construction places and just gone and dealt with it because, there is that feeling of, familiarity with the construction. So it just shows, how much that first part in Sterling & Wilson meant to you. So how come you just drop everything and decide, okay, I'm going to go to the construction?
No, so like I said, that this is where you can relate the issues, the problems, and the the agonies a project guy faces. And like I said the other day, I was just talking to one of my guys in one of the projects, and I could realize a very stooping voice. He was sounding, his morale was very, very low. I think you can always cajole him, counsel him over a phone, but nothing gives you more motivation, and morale gives you a morale up if you have your boss coming in person and trying to just give you a pat on the shoulder. So that's how we work, that's how I work, and that's how this whole understanding of the business and the construction and the relationship with the people, with the teams, blossoms and develops.
So also 6 months into your job, so you hadn't been there for very long. You had a meeting with a very high level person, one of the owners of Sterling and Wilson, and then 18 months later he called you to go visit him in Mumbai.
Yeah. So
you had to take a train ride of hell, 24 hours. For me, because I'm a foreigner, although I've been in those trains. What did he tell you?
I think in the project that I was executing, wherein, like I said, it was a baptism of fire. So 6 months, 7 months into the project, I bumped into the owner of Sterling Wilson. At that point, like we said, we were very small, so he used to come into the project, and this was a very large project, the largest project of Sterling Wilson. So he used to come in and to the project site. So as a construction engineer, I just bumped into him, and then there was this meeting that happened, in the boardroom, and then I was putting across my points, and it ended at that. And like I said, a year and a half down the line, I bumped into him 6 months into the project, when I was into the project, and a year and a half down the line, I just received a call that I have to travel to Mumbai, which is say a 1,500 kilometer distance, and that the entitlement for my grade was not air flight. I had to fly, go by train. I had to just go by the surface transport. So I actually took a 24-hour train, came and met my boss, Kharshid Daruwala, and he told me, Bikesh, I have an assignment for you. We were at that point in time only present in 2 places, Mumbai and Delhi, if people are familiar with India. So I had, I had a jolt from the blues, because he told me, I have an assignment for you. I need you to set up my operations down south, which is the southernmost part of the country. I just fell off my chair, because I don't know what hit me. Being a construction guy, having an experience on only construction, and then to be asked to set up as a startup a business down south was something which I really couldn't gather. So I told him, Kashid, I just need some break. I just need to pause on it, and I'll come back to you. So I reflected it with my family. I reflected it with my close, near and dear ones, and there were positive views, there were negative views. We being from the northern part, we have a different culture of working, and then going into a totally different culture, and then setting up operations there afresh with no business experience per se. You had a construction experience, yes, but no business experience per se, was a lot of deterrence around it. So finally, after lots of thoughts and lots of discussions, I was about to get married also at that point in time, and I discussed this with my spouse also, my wife now, obviously, that what we should do. She also was negative about it, but I think in the end we all came to a consensus that I must go. It is good for my growth, personal obviously, and professional as well. So I decided to then move down south to start up the operations in Bangalore. I don't know if people have heard about Bangalore.
So for the international, so the people that may not know India so well, India is such a large country, so diverse, that is really like a continent. So moving from the north to the south is quite a shock, a cultural shock, I can imagine. This is what I suppose took, such difficulties for you to figure it out. It was also a complete change, a departure in what you were doing. So I can imagine for you it was also difficult.
Yeah, so it was absolutely like what you rightly mentioned. It is absolutely a different set of country. If you take the north part of the India to the south part of the India, the west part of the India, they are multiple countries. Such is the diversity within the country that every 500,000 kilometers you have a different country to confront with. And when you go from north to the south, it's an absolute cultural shock. Because the way of working, the way people conduct, the way people transact is totally different, diametrically different. So there's a paradigm shift in how people operate. So obviously it was a big shock for me as well. And initially there was a lots of reservations for people accepting me coming in from north and trying to set up business for an organization that was not really well known. And there were a lot of frustrations around it to really get into the groove of the business. Leave aside creating a successful business, getting into the groove of the business, it was a big challenge for me.
So you were pretty much on your own. You had a couple of people helping. You were pretty much on your own. You did everything, A to Z. How was the first few months? How did they develop? How did it feel?
No, I think, see, what was happening is, like, when I started the operation there, we were hardly 3 guys. When we started the operation there, we had a guy who was doing our accounts, which was hardly anything to be done for. And then there was this guy who was just doing our, a clerical job of typing in other stuff, keying in numbers and all. So effectively, I think for the first year, it was very frustrating for me. One is to get into the culturally different, environment, and then business acceptance not being there. Obviously, you couldn't have really gotten multiple resources because you were only a cost center. You were only wanting money to be running your expenses there, running your operations there from the headquarters. So therefore, I was always wanting to minimize those expenses. So therefore, you had to double up for a multiple set of roles. Now you take about sales, BD, estimation, logistics, supply chain, construction, accounts, financing. All of that had to be rolled one. But I think in the hindsight, it definitely made me to understand the complete facets of the business. How to run a business. Although the business volumes to start off were very small, but then you could understand the nuances of each of these functions, each of these parameters. And then once I again look at it now from here, I think that was again, in my opinion, a very formative years, which helped me to pick up the traits of each of these functions very aptly.
So your biggest learning was to think about the business as a whole, of all those pieces that came together. But after a year, you weren't getting much luck. You were going to all these meetings. You were getting rejections. It wasn't really moving, right? So you kind of turned back and you went like, okay, but you weren't allowed to quit, right? They told you 6 more months. So what happened?
No, so I think the pact that was there with my boss was Kharshid, was that if I'm not able to perform within this timelines, I think I may not want to continue, because I didn't want it to be construed as a failure who couldn't really start or working on. So 1 year there was a struggle, there was frustration, there was a lot of fatigue and stress. And I had a chat with Kharshid again. I said, Kharshid, looks like it's not working out. I think we should move on. I should move on. So he said, why don't you give it another 6 months? And he gave me another. So we all both agreed for another 6 months. And I think those 6 months, I think, changed the course of at least the Sterling and Wilson business in the South. And I started from a very small project, and then graduated. Business started taking traction. People started recognizing the value in a North Indian coming into South India and giving commitments and executing on those commitments. So then business volumes increase. And now, as we are talking today, for Sterling Wilson, not the solar business, the MEP business, it's amongst the most voluminous and most profitable business as we are talking today for the southern part of the country.
So within 3 years or so of you being there, it actually became one of the fastest growers in Sterling and Wilson.
Within a span of 3 to 4 years, we were the largest, not MEP, I'd say, electrical service providers in that part of the country as well. We started getting recognized, by all of the customers in those parts.
From absolutely zero, and you started opening up offices everywhere, hiring people, getting more volume. But just one thing, we're going crazy, business was increasing. Everyone is happy, doesn't last, surely. What did they ask you then to do?
Yeah, so I think for me also, the aspiration has always been to, what next? So I think I had dawned. We have multiple businesses under our fold. So I was handling the southern part of the business, and I think incidentally, I was then asked to take charge of the northern part of the business as well. And when you talk about a northern business, that's where I had started off my career. And when I was asked to lead that part of the business, which was a substantial portion of the business, I can't recollect the figures. In 2011, 2010, 11 is when I was asked to lead that business. And it was very, very awkward for me because the guys whom I used to report into had to now report into me. And when I was there, I used to address them as sir, and then to go back and then call them by their names was very, very awkward. But then that's a phase of business which you need to live with. So initial few months were very awkward. So then north and south was the business that I took over. And that was contributing almost 50-55% of the overall volumes. In fact, more than that, 60% of the overall volumes of the organization. And within a span of 1 year, I think 6 months to 1 year, I took over the complete electrical business for Sterling and Wilson, wherein solar business was just sprouting out.
So how did you move into the solar business? This is like, I suppose many people are waiting here to hear, the first project was really small. I know it started in 2011 with an old client of yours that asks you, can you look into this as a 1 megawatt project, which sounds like nothing now, but at the time was huge. People were talking about kilowatts.
It was a dinosaur at that point in time. 1 megawatt in 2011 was a dinosaur for us. For me, it was a dinosaur. And that's how the business of solar started. And, we were working with one of our existing customers who had a 1 megawatt project. He had a module manufacturing, facility in India. So he just was also doing those kilowatt scale projects all across. So he asked me whether I was very close with the CEO of the company. So he asked me whether I can participate in this in some fashion. So being an electrical expertise, we did participate in that project, finish that project, and then you'll be shocked. Absurdly, timelines of 8 months, and that too struggling. And that's where the solar journey started for us.
Okay, so let's talk about this is the beginning, you start here and you get this really teeny tiny role in a teeny tiny project. Now looking back, of course, hindsight is beautiful. At the time, we just looked like this massive thing. But you went really quickly. So first you went from 1 to 5 megawatts. And even before you knew it, you were actually tackling quite a large project, even by today's standards. I mean, not by today's standards according to what you guys are doing, but quite large project, which was turnkey. So you went out not only in size, but also in responsibility and the amount of risk you were taking. So can you tell us about this next project?
Yeah, so organizationally, historically, how we had been built is as a contracting organization. The risks and liabilities are very limited. You have a 1 year liability and the risk associated with the project on the equipment side, and then you move out. And the timelines also, for a project of say a decent size, say suppose 4 million, 5 million, 7 million, where the sizes of the projects historically in the electrical business we used to do, they used to run for 12 months, 18 months and all. So it was comfortable, timelines, the thoughts and the acceleration on the thoughts were very, very slower. Once you moved on to this business, the complete shift, there was a tectonic shift on the velocity that which these projects had to be delivered. Now to transact into a decent space moving jobs into an absolutely crazily fast moving jobs, it takes time for people to realize that, and the organization and the shareholders to realize that there is risk. So the 1 megawatts and 5 megawatts, yes, 1 megawatt, like I said, we were learning the tricks of the trade. Then we picked up a 5 megawatt that was decently timed project. We did manage to finish that also in the timelines. So as we moved on into higher and higher, graduated into higher and higher scales, and as we understood the art of doing this business, because what is happening is historically we've been a project delivery company, project management, project engineering, project deliveries runs in our DNA. So we could really easily, switch over to these kind of business from those perspectives. But on a speed perspective, it took us a while for us to adapt to the speed that these projects are demanding. And when the first 36 megawatt project came our way in 2012, 13, yeah. there was a lot of internal discussion. There was a lot of internal, pushbacks, bumps that a project of $50 million to be done in 4 months. Bikesh, have you gone crazy? This can't be done. I was also not very sure about it. We had a lot of informed decision, and finally we decided to plunge into it. And today that project, obviously from a domestic perspective, and as well from an international perspective, is a springboard project for us. We really took off after that project. So that was a 36 megawatt project to be done in 3.5 months. 14-kilometer transmission line, all got done well in time. Customer very excited. We made a good amount of money, which is not imaginable today. The kind of money we made, the profits we made on the project, and then there was no looking back after that. Then the more projects became challenging, the more comfortable customers were working with us because they knew that we were up against the challenges and we would deliver it on time as per their expectation.
So you took a bunch of risk, which you had never really taken before. You did it in 3.5 months, which was unseen in the industry generally. And not only that, but this project by itself was already a good portion of your entire turnover, really. So, I mean, right. It's hard for me to really understand, what gave you the security, the confidence, I suppose, that that project could be delivered on time, on budget.
No, so I think it is the entrepreneurial drive that we all have as an organization. We take risks. The risk-taking appetite is quite high, but we have our checks and balances in place. So all those checks and balances in place, we knew the pros and cons of taking this project. So all of that was assessed and evaluated and understood before we really took a plunge into the project. And incidentally, what had happened at that same point in time, there was one more project from the same customer, which was supposed to be delivered in the same timelines. We had to say no to the project because we were not comforted in the first place on the first project itself. So we didn't really took this again. In the hindsight, obviously, it's a mistake. And what also happened in the first project is because we had a lot of risks and liabilities around the yields and performance ratios and all, we had to give up around $4 million of our O&M margins because we are actually today also we are doing it free of cost. 2030 this year it will get over because we will do it free of cost. The customer was so confident we will deliver it on time and with high yield and high performance. He said, "Okay, I take this." He grabbed it with both his hands. So we gave him a $4 million EPC O&M contract margins. So again, these are learnings. These are all learnings which you obviously, take in your stride and then try and improve on those.
But it's interesting when an industry is starting, how, the industry is almost like a family, everyone trying to pull together. And then there was another project that was really similar to this in terms of timelines and size. And in Jodhpur, the interesting thing about this project and the reason that we mentioned it is because something happened to you that never happened in your career before. And
yeah, something happened which will never happen in future and which has never happened before as well. So there was this bunch of these developers who were wanting to put up projects in the same solar park. Again, a 36 megawatt project, some 8 developers. There was a tax, there still is, there's a tax swap that's called accelerated depreciation. So you can depreciate your asset by 80%. In order to give thrust to renewables, the government had put in that policy. So we were talking to them, and the uniqueness about the project, just to quickly add to your point and to move forward, as that the guys were so very insistent on working with us. We walked away with a 90%. I walked away with a 90% advance with the team, mobilization advance, and this is unheard of in the industry. People, when I talk to people at any given point of time, any platform, they just get shell shocked to hear that I actually took a $30 million check. Whilst I was discussing, the order value was $33 million, $34 million.
It's insane. I've never seen such a large advance, but anyway.
This is absurd, insane, unheard of, and this you can't hear in the industry anymore, I can promise you that.
It's hard to believe that you ever heard this, but it's a nice factoid. So let's talk now about the international expansion. This was around this time. You were chatting to your colleague, Vikas Bansal, and you put together a plan. You went to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which at the time was making a lot of noise, about getting into solar. And you actually ended up sort of meeting a South African developer. And this is actually your first project, if I understand rightly, abroad. It's quite a large project, and you delivered it incredibly fast. So I want to hear this story, because I think this is the platform into your meteoric rise internationally. Tell us about this project. What happened there? What did you learn? And used to the Indian market, all of a sudden going abroad. How was that?
Yes, I think very interesting story around this project and our international journey as well. I think, like you said, me and my colleague Vikas, who heads my international business development and sales, we were just chatting, over a coffee that, business in India was looking good. We had decent volumes coming in, but we always were wanting to be future proof. We were wanting to be future ready. So we were just chatting whether we can set up our office, because to deliver a 36 megawatt project in 3.5 months in India is far, far easier, because it's a backyard. You have resources, you can leverage resources from all across. So it was never a challenge. But then to go into international geography, to have an acceptance, from the international IPPs, lenders, technical advisors who have not seen us having any experience, was a challenge. It was a big challenge. So for almost a year, we struggled to really, at least be even heard of. Leave aside, getting appointments and all, not even heard of. So we decided to at least let's the best way to get at least heard of or seen, in my understanding, was to set up an exhibit. Although there was this care program that was running in Saudi Arabia at that point in time, very, very hyped about the program. Unfortunately, it didn't take off in the timeline it was supposed to. So we just put up an exhibit there. We met the South African developer, and we just were trying to engage with him, although he was not interested, because he had already, he had a 90 megawatt, he already had his EPCs and other stuff already locked in. And I think some of our persistence paid. He called us one day and he said, I want to send my team to have a look at your plant in India. So he sent the teams to India. He just had a look at the plant, his team, in fact, not him. And he just saw the plant, and he just asked for the capex of the plant. We gave him the capex. So we were absolutely thrilled as he called us, said, you please fly down to Cape Town the next morning. So we just flew into Cape Town. We just structured the deal. It took us almost 8 to 9 months to really get into the deal. And by the time we cut the deal, I think we had a fair bit of experience on the South African market. And South African market is a very, very typical complex market. Not that the other markets are not, but yes, South African has got this deep black empowerment. It has got a local content requirements, local content subdivided into further sub-local content requirements. It's a very, very complex market. You can't really just go in and execute a project there. So we invested around 3-4 resources there for almost 7-8 months. We spent almost $1 million to understand the market. Fortunately, what saved us also was the fact that we lost those 6-7 months, because the deal construct was to be changed, the EPC had to be changed, and all the other stuff. So once we started the project, I think the lenders and their advisors were very reluctant to work. No international experience coming in from India. We can't take a hedge. We can't take a risk. So they effectively, were really giving a lot of pushback. But I think we could manage with our group cloud. We could manage to convince the lenders. We could manage to convince their advisors as well that yes, we can deliver the project. And we deliver the project within the PV plant in 7 months. And by the external time, we delivered it in 10 months, which is an unheard of timelines in the history of that country. And people say in the Western Hemisphere that's the fastest build that would ever be happening for that size of a plant. And I recollect there was a plant which was happening, which just started at the same time as that of ours. That was not even 25-30% completed, as compared to our plant once we finished the plant. So we finished the plant in time, on budget, on time. So that actually gave us a lot of exposure into the international markets. That gave us a lot of experience in the international market. A lot of people started recognizing us as a true global player on the EPC side, and then started engaging meaningfully with us. And that's how I think that project took us to a different league, because a lot of people now started showing a lot of interest in us and trying to understand how the business model of our Sterling Wilson model works.
So you were picked essentially, taken seriously because the capex was so much lower than other people were. No one agreed that you would be able to deliver the plant in the time that you were saying you could deliver it, but you did it. Even, you know, it's just insane when you think about it. I mean, there must be a secret formula there. And this was the beginning. This was like what, you know, made you take off. And you went into the Philippines, Morocco, Egypt, you know, several projects. We could talk about them forever, but the one that I'm interested in is like the largest project on earth right now, which you're the EPC for, which is the one in Abu Dhabi, 1,177 megawatts. There is a very interesting story around this too. So tell us about, how did you get into this project? You know, I can see also people are interested here to hear, how did you think you could manage, you know, how did you get it? It wasn't the first really large project you were trying for, so how did it go? Tell us the story.
Yeah, I think very interesting story to this project. Besides of the other projects that we all been doing, every story has got a every project has got an interesting story revolved around it, and every project has got a very uniqueness, clear uniqueness about it. But yes, since the size is, the size it is, 1.17 gigawatts. So this was basically, a build wherein you needed to have a 350 megawatt minimum as the size of the project, and then the people had to pack in as much as they could pack. So we worked with the customer, our engineering, their engineering. We could manage to churn out a very unique configuration on the park, wherein the configuration was different from what normally configuration that we have for a modern placement that is south facing. So when we actually backed this job, when the results were announced and when the capacities were announced, people started mocking at us. I can remember getting calls from multiple people that, Bikesh, you have actually been suicidal in committing these quantities, these capacities. You'll never be able to build these capacities. So we were also a bit apprehensive, a bit scared, but eventually what has happened is today I think we are left with, and that's the reason why this number is so unique. You don't have a 1.2 gigawatt, you have 1,177. So to the last megawatt we could pack, we have packed. So today also, now the plant is almost 60-65% ready. We would be having a space for capacity addition of another 10 to 15 megawatts. So that is the kind of configuration and engineering that we have done on the plant. So what is also unique about this plant, which was obviously being discussed at that point, is we're using robotics in these plants. So these are all around 1,500 robots cleaning the complete plant. And the soiling losses we have put up a pilot. We did the understanding from a pilot project on the robots, and it works well. So that's also very, very unique about this plant, automated, robotic cleaning, which will give it a different feel. So one of the most cherished and momentous, projects for us, obviously, 24 months is the timeline that it is supposed to be delivered. If all goes well, right now we are on target to deliver it in 22 months, well before time. And again, if all goes well, from October this year, we'll start pumping electrons into the grid.
Excellent. And how did you manage to hit those really, really low prices? Really, because they were really extremely competitive.
People today are talking, they are no longer low prices. People are asking 20% lesser prices at that than what they were at that point in time. But yes, I think like the differentiator that Sterling Wilson brings on the table is obviously the nimble-footedness, agility, fast churn out, and because we work from the back end is in India, which is a low-cost base, and obviously qualitatively very good engineering project management. So we can add those 1.5% differentiator on the capex, and which is what we did. Besides of the fact that we worked at a very, very challenging margin on the project because we wanted to get this project. So combination of all of this, helped us to bring in those capex numbers, what was expected to be as a winning number on the grid.
I have a feeling about Sterling and Wilson that rather than sort of working with the developer in terms of, okay, they put a target and you hit it, you actually make them look at the big price and actually sort of shape that whole consortia. So I have a feeling that you guys learned a lot in the last few sort of tenders before you went into that big one.
Yeah.
Who is your real,
No, so there were. What happens, when you have bids, which is being an exclusive tie-up bids happening, and in certain regions, that's how the bids happen. And we were participating in the other bid that happened, a very large size bid, which happened 800 megawatt Deva, wherein we were tied up with Aqua. We definitely ensure that we are very competitive and the prices are very competitive, but as a consortium we couldn't really bag it. Aqua obviously being such a fantastic customer for us, tried it best, but eventually we didn't bag. So what it entailed and what we realized for us, it isn't in this bid, it isn't against Aqua we have to bid, it is against the larger world. So that was a feeling that dawned on us, that we need to be very, very competitive. And in fact, what happened is that they gave us a target price, we met the target price, and we realized that we have more to offer. And without them asking for it, we came back and said, take further discount. And actually, if you honestly ask me, that was the reason why the bid was won, because we gave that additional, I think, 0.5 or 0.6 cent discount. That was the reason why the bid got won by us. So these small things help a lot in understanding the nuances, the dynamics of the business.
It is great, because it just means that, if you want a winning consortium, then you need to include you in it. Because if you go around and say, actually, looking at the numbers again, I think I can give you more discount. Yes. That is exactly what everybody wants to hear, if it's doable, right? And you have to constantly be re-questioning yourself.
Absolutely.
How to write this down.
So I always tell my team that they need to unlearn and relearn the whole stuff. And every time it needs to unlearn and relearn the whole stuff.
I love that. So, and that is right. I mean, we're in such a period of change. And talking about periods of change, the last 2 years have gone really quickly, really fast. You've gone absolutely global. You've opened offices in the US and Australia and also Madrid. I'd like to also add that, because I'm based here. You are getting projects pretty much as you open offices. Tell us about the last few months, and also about sort of the numbers, that you're handling right now.
Yeah, so you're right, Belen. I think over the last 2 to 3 years, it's been absolutely an explosive growth that we've been having. And I think if you talk about the numbers, like you mentioned in the beginning, 3.5 gigawatts already commissioned, 3 gigawatts under various stages of commissioning. And by this year end, I would say, and when I say year end of financial year, the financial year ends in the March, we should be around 6.5 gigawatts of commissioned power plants. And we should have another 1.5 gigawatts of construction happening. So by next year end, all goes well, we will have around 8 gigawatts of commissioned power plants under our belt. So that's the kind of growth. And these numbers have come in the last 2 years, 2.5 years only. So there has been a very explosive growth. There has been a very, very dynamic, growth happening. And at the same time, we are definitely, ensuring that the delivery capabilities gets crucial, because obviously this is a delivery mechanism as a core of this business. So we always obviously have to ensure that our delivery capacity gets spruced up, our bandwidth gets spruced up. Like you said, we have opened office in Australia, US, and also US. We got a mid-sized. We were trying to do a mid-sized acquisition of a solar EPC. It couldn't work out because the company turned back. We acquired a complete management team. So we have an organization running that complete show there. Likewise, in Australia, we have an acquisition of a small size or construction company, Golden Balance of Plants. So as you grow, as you expand, you need to also ensure that you increase your bandwidth, you keep your management bandwidth, in the right place. In Madrid also, we have a management team of around 7 to 8 guys, which we will spruce it up further. Obviously, that gives you a lot of, that sounds music to your ears, which is good to hear.
Yeah, the European market is about to take off. There's going to be 3,000 megawatts at least built in Spain and other countries. So yeah, it's going to take off. But of course, to be honest, is one of the sort of fastest, most exciting, successful stories I heard in a while. But these kind of things don't come without challenges, and you've overcome your challenges, one at a time, sort of thing. But what is interesting now is that your main challenge is to grow fast without growing fat, and to maintaining all of this, new company. You've gone so much bigger. I appreciate your vision, your determination. You've made it possible, you and your team. And I see, like, especially when fighting against your company internally, and trying to keep on the vision, must have been hard for you. But what do you think are the biggest challenges going forward? And this is not only my question, by the way. Some people have been asking the same things. How do you plan on keeping this on going?
No, I think before you mentioned about success, you mentioned about we growing so fast. I think what's important also for me to mention over this call and interview is the fact that, to me, the most critical and important success factors is my team. Immensely and extremely proud of my team. I wouldn't have even remotely achieved, or we wouldn't have remotely achieved what we have hadn't I had been surrounded by the kind of teams that I have. And we are more of a family than colleagues. I don't give them targets. They're so self-driven, self-propelled, and self-motivated. They fix their targets themselves and always overachieve them. So I'm very, very lucky and very fortunate to have the teams like that. And when you talk about challenges and stresses, so challenges are multiple. See, to sustainably grow this business, healthily grow this business, to expand in such geographies, is a big, big, big challenge. See, you will encounter a bump or two whilst you go through this. And I think we need to always learn from those bumps, learn from those mistakes, and correct it and move forward. But obviously, like you said, there is stress, there is fatigue, people's bandwidth gets stretched, but obviously we don't force them into it. They are wanting to be a part of such a dynamic organization, grow dynamically, financially, professionally. So they want to be a part of it. But yes, to maintain the sustainably, healthily is the biggest challenge, and the scalability, maintain the scalability is a challenge. The volumes are there for the taking. You can see clearly the volume going up in multiple markets. The volumes are there to be taken. Cultural integration. We've got almost 45 to 46 nationalities working for us now. We've got almost 950 people and 45 nationalities. To really create that cultural integration, is one of the other major challenges. Our Sterling Wilson's way of working is the working which you need to now. You have a US way of working, you have a Middle East way of working. They all need to converge somewhere. Yes, it has to be a blend and mix of various cultural workings. But eventually, we need to create a Sterling Wilson way of working. That's again a challenge, like I said. And I think again one more bigger challenge is the talent retention. A lot of people look at Sterling Wilson now with microscope to understand and try and poach the talent which is available with us. Fortunate for us that we have been lucky to have the lowest retention rate in the industry today, and we definitely are proud, like I said, of the team who have decided to stay around with this organization very firmly. So that is again one more biggest challenge that we're facing today in the market.
So what I see when I speak to anyone from Sterling Wilson is that despite the fact you guys work all hours given, really, you work really, really hard. I think the fact that it's growing so much and the pride of people working there, I think was making the big difference. So maintaining that is key. I agree with you. And the last question that I have here, and then let's see if we have, a few questions that it's also a question that someone has asked. We discussed that in the future, you see storage as a key, sort of like the dispatchability side of solar as the key into this 2.0, if you like, where it's going. So what are you guys doing in this area? And, what do you think the growth will come for the future? How are you preparing for this?
See, solar undoubtedly coupled with storage is going to be the next disruption in the energy space, for sure. There's no doubt in that. And for us as an organization, we are investing quite a bit in the storage space and very meaningfully, looking at acquisitions, creating engineering excellence, and, trying to create partnerships. We see a huge amount of shift, wherein a large conventional plant would get replenished by solar plus storage dispatchable power. We see that attraction around that space. Added to this, the frequency regulation, peak shavings, voltage support, demand control, movement would also play a very, very large role in getting more and more, because the grids are getting more and more congested. So you need to have these grid interactive storage-based solutions in place. Back of the meter also is one of the space where there is a good amount of traction, and retrofitting of existing plants with storage solution is again the space which is opening up. At least in India, it has opened up. There is retrofitting of wind plus solar farms. There is a auction that is shortly going to happen. So net, I think we are very, very bullish about the space, and fortunate for us, we are positioned very, very aptly to capitalize on this next wave of the energy growth.
So this is definitely next, and you guys are preparing for it. That's amazing. Let me ask you, if it's okay, a couple of questions just from people here. How do you make business decisions? Is it a close-knit group or team advising you, or what is your decision-making process?
We have a very democratic decision-making process here. It's not that my way and highway. I'm the boss and this is a decision. It's a very, very democratic way of decision-making that happens in our group, and it happens with a very informed view. We assess the risks, we assess the liabilities, and then you weigh everything and then you take decision in consultation. It's a very consultative approach that we follow in the decision-making in the organization.
And the last question, which I absolutely love, by the way, because we have to go, is someone here is keen to know what is the secret of your energy and enthusiasm that you always have on you. Isn't that beautiful?
Probably
it's true, actually. Every time I meet you, because you have so much energy, where is it coming from?
Probably a couple of beers after the day's work that charges me up for the next morning.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been absolutely incredible. And I'm not just talking about this interview, actually, because getting to know you has to be one of the highlights of my career. Really, for everyone that is out there listening, is a very inspirational person. I hope that you get the opportunity to work with him or to meet him, because really, I think you certainly have this energy around you, like when they talk about Steve Jobs and that energy that he had around himself. Same with you. So I am looking forward to seeing what is next. I know that you still have a lot of things to come in the future, not only in Sterling and Wilson, also in your career. So I am very much looking forward to seeing what comes up, and maybe we can do an interview in a few more years to see where you got to. Thank you very much for your time, Bikesh, and thank you very much.
Thanks for hearing me out. Thanks for the patience by all the participants. Thank you very much, and thanks for taking me on this platform.
Thank you very much. Speak soon. Bye.
Bye.